first of all, I want to start with a riddle, okay?
Like, why is Scribe subjecting himself to another TEDx talk? Yeah, that is a difficult question. But within a couple of minutes, I think you might see what it was about this talk that grated on my nerves.
So a son and a father is in a car. They're traveling down a highway. And then smash, head-on collision, truck. The father is instantly killed. The son gets taken to the hospital, rushed into the trauma room. The surgeon runs into the room. I can't operate. He's my son. Why couldn't the surgeon operate?
I can't count how many times this logic problem has been used to demonstrate male bias when it comes to positions of authority or success. It's juvenile and cliché, and it has a very simple explanation. But we'll get to that momentarily.
Or who was the surgeon? His mother. Perfect.
See? You didn't stump anyone. So does that allay your fears? Of course it doesn't. The narrative must continue.
9 out of 10 people go to his other dad, his grandfather, his uncle. They automatically go to a male figure of, for some reason, well, I know the reason.
Do you? Could the simple reason be that fewer women become surgeons than men do? In the US, only about 19% of surgeons are female. In the United Kingdom, a recent study showed that female medical students showed only half as much interest as male students in pursuing a surgical career. They cited the desire to have and maintain a family, inflexible training schedules, and a lack of role models. The fact is, a majority of women are just opting not to become surgeons, and such has been the case for decades. So if someone shows a kind of bias, or has a syntax error of logic when answering your stupid riddle, it might be due to their biases on the basis of statistical reality.
We see men as of importance, or we see them in a place of power, or whatever it may be. And I really want us to engage with that and look at why exactly is that we're automatically programmed and socialized in that way.
Because the majority of men exhibit masculinity, which is characterized by aggressiveness, ambition, physical strength, and a control over one's emotions. These traits are advantageous to arriving at positions of leadership. The perspective of men as authority figures is, again, a bias based on reality. It's not that women can't arrive at these same positions, it's that they commonly choose not to.
I was introduced as a black feminist, a specific distinction. It's not because I'm a feminist and I'm black.
So this was the part of the talk that caught my attention in the first place, and gave me an aha moment. Truthfully, it's an aha moment I should have had a long time ago, but hey, I am what I am. Now, I had been confused by the terms white feminism and black feminism. I have been so steeped in the racial prejudices spewing from social justice lately, I defaulted to thinking it was a race-based thing, which, admittedly, seems to be used in conjunction with their true meaning. But I understand now that you have to think of these terms in the same way as white magic versus black magic, essentially two schools of sorcery, not necessarily referring to the skin color of the practitioner. But they are different enough to stand in opposition to one another.
It's because there's a specific distinction, black feminist, which was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989, which looks at the different ways in which you experience inequality.
I just thought I would be a smarty pants here and point out that both the term black feminism and its unique definition were both in practice long before 1989. There was indeed a national black feminist organization founded in 1973. Our speaker doesn't even know the origins of his own ideology.
First of all, we look at James Brown, who sang the very famous song, I'm not going to sing, "This is a Man's World," okay? Now, we can argue that till the cows come home, but it's not.
We could argue that, but I'm just going to halt any discussion by telling you what reality is. I wonder if that's an exercise of his male privilege.
There's certain privileges and convenient structures in place to have men be privileged, to have them be in power. The fact that Theresa May is a prime minister shouldn't be a big deal in 2016, but it is, despite your political affiliation. But it is.
Now, I'm not a Brit, but I have to wonder how big a deal it is if you have to tell your audience that it's a big deal. Either it's understood or it's not.
And as a man, I acknowledge that I have privilege. I was just born with it.
Yes, You'll never escape it. You are perpetually flawed over something you have no control over. This is what we call original sin, and what several religions are based upon. That aside, can you please name for us some of these exclusive male privileges?
Those of you who are interested in Marvel, Spider-Man, Uncle Ben said to Spider-Man before he died, "With great privilege or with great power comes great responsibility."
Now, I ask you, was that a real Freudian slip or a manufactured one?
As a man in privilege, what am I doing with my responsibility?
Apparently speaking at a TEDx women's event in order to shame men into feeling bad about themselves.
What am I doing with my privilege? Or am I going to come to a TED event and talk to you lot?
Would you believe that I scripted that previous line about shaming men from a TEDx women's event before I came to this point in the video?
Were any of you born and you signed up to the gender or the inequality that you have now?
That cannot be a serious question.
No one. You just live that way.
Yes, very good. We are all shackled to the biological realities of our birth. Original sin. We've already covered this. Don't you have any better material?
With me being a man, I just live that way. I think that's how it should be because it always has been that way. Some people have challenged it, some people haven't. But I didn't sign up to that. I'm just kind of walking along, picking up privilege and dropping stuff that I don't like.
So simply the advent of your birth makes you a victim. From the womb, you are being saddled with all of this unwanted privilege. This has to be one of the dumbest social justice humble brags I have heard yet.
But at the same time, as a black man, I'm getting all this other stuff that I don't necessarily want as well.
Okay, what other stuff are you getting? You haven't named a single right or privilege you get, either as a man or as a black man, that is denied anyone who doesn't look like you do.
And then as a woman of color, they're getting all this stuff that they don't want.
What stuff? And how do you know they don't want it? Do you feel entitled to speak for women of color? Is that one of your male privileges shining through?
It really does intersect, which is why I say black feminism as a distinction. It's not to the exclusion of others. It's because there's a different consideration that needs to be applied when you look at me as opposed to someone else.
Oh, no. It's not meant to exclude others. It just means people need to have a different consideration that needs to be applied when they look at you as opposed to someone else. That demand for special treatment doesn't create any divisions at all. Black feminism, white feminism, Sunni, Shia, Catholic, Protestant. These divisions of ideology don't cause any problems.
And this is what I truly believe we need to teach our young boys. Our sons, our brothers, our uncles, our granddads, no matter what age it is. If you truly believe it, if you're aware of this binary that we've stepped into and inherited from a society.
And what should the girls be taught? How should they be trained to act outside of their natural inclinations, to better conform to your view on what is correct behavior?
There is a stigma that black fathers are absent. It is not true.
The most recent statistics on single-parent families in the UK that I could find come from the 2007 Select Committee on Home Affairs report, which details that 59% of black Caribbean, 44% of black African, and 61% of mixed households grow up with single parents. Meanwhile, the overall proportion of all children in the UK living with a single parent was only 22%. Now, are all of those single parents mothers? I can't say from the information available, but if the situation in the UK is at all comparable to that in the US, I would say it's a fair bet the majority are single mothers.
But if a mum's absent, it's seen as, oh my gosh, she does not love her child. How could she? I could never do that. But it's a father, it's like, well, you know, that's what you expect. Of course, he didn't carry her, or he didn't carry him. And there's this thing that we do with our men, whether it be as a young boy, as a father, as an employee, or wherever. But we accept this way of behaving and this way to conform. And we're like, yeah, well, it's okay. No one challenges that.
Alimony, child support, deadbeat dad. Any of these terms ring a bell? Because there are laws that penalize absentee fathers. They are not considered to have a free pass, nor are they given much respect for having abandoned their families. You are talking nonsense.
But what I would say about that is, despite what I've just said, my father was not around, but that's not the point.
Oh, really? So, are you denying your own lived experience? If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were suffering from internalized hypocrisy.
My mum raised me. I was raised in a women-only household, more or less.
Well, imagine that. A boy raised in a household by a woman who was abandoned by her husband, and you're a self-ashamed feminist? Shocking.
And so I was raised through the lens of feminism.
Again, would you believe that I wrote that last bit before I got to this part of the video? I swear it's true.
But what that was doing was that was setting me up for equality in every single way.
I think you have confused the word equality with indoctrination.
And what I think is really important is to speak to young men, speak to boys, speak to babies.
Gaga goo goo.
And think about, what do we say when we say man up? One of my colleagues said to me the other day, my friend told her 2-year-old to man up. What does that look like?
Given the circumstances of your upbringing, I am not much surprised that you have to ask what manning up looks like.
Am I a man because of my anatomy and my gender?
Yes.
One of the things I do is I volunteer for Great Men UK, and we go into schools and we speak to these young men. What does gay look like? Can this person be transgender? Can this person be asexual?
They can, but statistically they often are not. That's reality again, by the way. And I understand why you're going into schools with your ideology. It's the same rationale as Bible school. You need to get them while they are young and their minds are malleable, long before they might grow up and see you for the religious zealot that you are.
And I, again, calling you men out. It's with us. Yes, I know it's a women's space, but
I'm a man and I can take over this space anytime I darn well please, because feminism.
Feminism and equality is not a woman's issue. It's a human rights issue because it impacts us. Not in the same way, but it does impact us. And we're all accountable for addressing that on every single level.
Then you may want to look into egalitarianism. It's the philosophy that handles what you're talking about just fine, and without all the convoluted intersectional garbage.
So, does anyone know the leading cause in death of men between the ages of 18 to 30 years old? Suicide. Why do you think that is? We don't talk. We are in our cage. We're like, I want to be free, I want to be free, I want to be free. And then someone comes to help us and we're like, I'm good.
Am I the only one kind of creeped out by their laughter at this point? That aside, can you entertain the possibility that it is people like you and the forces of your ideology incessantly shaming men and boys for being who and what they are? That it's your constant refrain that boys are just defective girls and need to be corralled away from their own happiness, and that it's feminism that is driving them to take their own lives? If you go into schools as a male authority figure and tell young men that what they feel, what they enjoy, and what they are is wrong, what kind of quality of life do you imagine you are imparting upon that child? What do you think will happen once they have internalized this self-hatred for long enough?
I just know that my brothers of all creeds between 18 and 30 are dying because they're killing themselves. Not because of boy races or drugs or fights or knife crime or whatever it may be. It's because they're killing themselves. Dying is more of a way out than dealing with whatever that issue is or looking for the root of that issue.
If you want to explore the root of the issue, you might begin by looking into a mirror. Okay, folks, that's just about all I could stand of that. But do give the full talk a watch if you have the time and the stomach for it. All else aside, it's only by listening to people that you would tend to disagree with that you can come to your own conclusions honestly. As always, thank you for watching.